What's up, everybody? I'm back with another episode of the Keep Going podcast. Today's guest is Joe Cooley. He's a retired man now, but has lived an eventful life. And in this episode, we dive deep into the Oklahoma City bombing, and we also shed light on a police officer named Terry Yeakey, who saved multiple people from the bombing, but a year later turned up dead in a field out past El Reno, shot in the head with his wrist cut. It was recorded as a suicide, but many people that cared for him and knew him did not think he would kill himself and lean more on a homicide and a little bit of foul play, to say the least. This is a tough episode, and it dives deep into corruption and sadness and how dark things can get sometimes. But it is information that needs to be shared. It's beautiful how he's able to articulate this story and relay the details so that we can get a better understanding of what happened. It ends on a positive note where he discusses nutrition, positivity, presence, and living life with purpose. I hope you all enjoy this episode. As always, keep going. Well, Joe, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much.
No, thanks for having me. And
I know
thank you. That means a lot. It really does.
Yes,
I don't take it lightly when people say that. And I know that we've spoken at Tabby Coffee and got to share moments that way, but I'm honored as well that you wanted to sit down with me. So
yes.
Without further ado, Joe Cooley, I appreciate you sitting down, but also wanting to expand on the Oklahoma City bombing and kind of take us on a journey. So if you could, just for the listeners and myself and people that may not be as familiar with the Oklahoma City bombing, if you could give me a general overview of what happened, and then we can dive into the topics that you want to discuss, if that's okay.
Sure. Well, the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building is named after a judge. The bombing had a special meaning for me for two reasons. Number one, I was fairly close by. I was at Kaiser's Ice Cream there in the front lot, and I was with my boss who ran a security company. So we were real cool. We were all black uniforms and had guns on the waist and all of that. And when the explosion hit, I drew my weapon, and my boss didn't look around because it sounded like somebody had fired a 12-gauge shotgun between us. It just boom. Now we saw the smoke, and when we raced down there to see what it was, and when we realized it was the federal building, that had meaning too, because just a few weeks earlier, the company for which I work, Profile International Security Services, we bid that contract to do security. So Tom Hunt, who was the chief of security and what's called a federal police officer, showed me through the building for a couple of days. Okay. So we went through the Social Security, the credit union, the Marine recruitment office. ATF, of course, wouldn't let us in. We went to the nursery and saw that. All the offices. And it was a beautiful building. It really was on the inside, and you go in there, the elevators. It's just a really impressive building. So anyway, my supervisor, Bill Davis, who's a former SEAL in Vietnam, we raced to the scene in my vehicle, and we got out and saw this stuff. And, I just thought, wow. But we kept control, and we saw all sorts of, ugly things there. And what I remember the most are all of the smells. And there were people there talking about a gas explosion, and Bill Davis looked at the guy and says, "You don't have a clue." And I said, "What do you think it is, Bill? Is it an airline crash?" He says, "No, I know what jet fuel smells like. And this is a terrorist attack." And I said, we were just conversing real fast, standing out by the building. I said, "My God, you know what's in that building." He says, I know. This is major international news." So we were standing there watching for people leaving the scene, not people walking up to it. So after about 12, 15 minutes, we were ushered off the scene by a very aggressive cop. I don't know if he was federal or what, but he was. We were told in a not very nice way to get your asses out of here, So we left. So no one in Oklahoma expected it to happen here. We expect an attack like that to happen in Florida, New York City, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, but Oklahoma City, it just was out of place. So that's basically an introduction to what happened. Okay. Now, I would like to spend a little time talking about the first officer who arrived on the scene, because he was giving a traffic violation about a block west from the location at the Civic Center, I believe it was.
Yeah.
But he apparently was giving the ticket, and when he heard that explosion, he threw it down and came right to the building. And his name was Officer Terrence Eugene Yeakey.
Okay.
He was a big, athletic, strong person who was well known in El Reno, which is where he was from. Everybody knew he was like a hero there. He was good enough, from what I've heard, to be on the NBA as a basketball player. He was really a good sports guy. And he was just like a hero out there. And so he was the first one on the scene, and he saved several lives.
After the bombing happened, first one there?
First one there.
Wow.
So he picked these people up and put them on his shoulders and ended up injuring his back really bad. So he ended up in the hospital.
From carrying people out?
Yeah, carrying people out and saving lives. And so his wife explained that when she went to see him, and her name's Tanya Yeakey, that he was just very concerned as the days passed and they saw the news reports that they didn't really explain the truth about what happened. So he knew something was up right away.
And as far as the truth of what happened, like what was being told that was different from what he experienced, do you think?
Well, that when they left the building and were running down the street and they were saying, oh, there's another bomb in the building. There wasn't.
And they being the security of the place?
The two explosive devices went off, okay? So he could see that what was really going on was that they had paperwork that the FBI wanted to get, that they had in the building, and the ATF. So these people are dying, and they need their help, and they just run over them to get the paperwork all done first. That was a priority. To heck with the human lives, And apparently he may have overheard conversations, but he never got specific about it with his wife. And the wives I've talked to of cops says, yeah, a lot of times they don't talk about their job or things that they're not supposed to talk about. And I think he was just taking it in. So time went on, and he started making his feelings vocal to his supervisors. Lieutenant Joanne Randall was his direct supervisor, and Major Steve Upchurch, they're both retired, was her boss. Okay. Terry was also involved in the DARE program that keeps kids off drugs, So he was really into that kind of stuff to help kids and all of that. He's a good person. As time went on, his supervisors became disenchanted with him because he kept bringing up this idea that things weren't right. Other officers experienced the same thing. One was a good friend of Terry's named Don Browning, who was the K-9 division. At the time of the bombing, they had a place downtown that had both the sheriff's officers' horses and the police officers' dogs. They kept in the same building. And he was there writing out his report. No, not writing, he had completed his report. And two men came in that facility dressed in suits, and they were FBI. And they told Browning, and he told me this, that they didn't like his report. They wanted him to omit and take out certain things of that report. And he responded, no, you don't determine that. The police department, my supervisors, look at the report and they, if there's grammatical errors, they'll ask me to repeat that, but they don't tell me what to put in the report. And the FBI agent said something to the effect, in a subtle way, is that it'd probably be better if you cooperated because, we find that people that don't cooperate have a decreased level of longevity. And so he went home that night, went under his desk crying like a baby, and eventually he had to seek counseling. He'd worked with the FBI before on cases, but he had never been talked to like that. And there were other officers that felt, that they tried to correct the reports. So this is bad. Terry Yeakey wrote a long 20, 25-page report, okay? And his supervisor approached him and tried to get him to change it, but he wouldn't. So you'll find with these officers' reports that, years later they tried to go in the computer and find it, and it doesn't even exist. Like an officer's report on the day of bombing, it just disappeared. Okay? So, and the police won't give any information on it. And it sort of goes back to what my great-grandmother used to tell me. And she used to say, people say more in their silence than they do in their speech. And that's why I'm suspicious about the death of Officer Yeakey. It's not, they won't release reports, they won't talk about it. But as I said, Terry Yeakey was from El Reno, and the last part of his life, which was about 10 years to the date of the bombing, the next day he was scheduled to receive an Officer of the Year award. Okay? So his body was found out in the middle of a field across the street and about a mile up the road from the old El Reno penitentiary out there. Okay. His car was found first by a Canadian County Sheriff's deputy who was in the middle of a robbery call, okay, who knew Terry. Most people did out there. So he recognized it. It was a Ford Probe, as Terry's car, and he stopped and he looked at it, and then he got out of his vehicle and he saw blood on the middle console, a sizable amount of blood, and a sizable amount of blood on the bucket seat. So he was very concerned. He found a razor blade in the console, one single razor blade, and it was about the equivalent of about 2 pints of blood. There's a reason that that's important. So outside the car, to the north of the vehicle, about 20 yards out, he found a razor blade dispenser. And then across the road, he found another dispenser. And then there was a post there, and there was some blood smeared on it. And he immediately called for Sheriff Hawkins of Canadian County Sheriff's Department to come out, and a highway patrol trooper came out there. And a lot of what they write in their reports is based upon information they got from the Oklahoma City Police Department, who came out there and they took over the scene.
As that other officer was there, the one that had found the car?
I'm sorry?
The guy that found the car, the Oklahoma City police came and overtook it while he was there?
Yeah, he called Sheriff Hawkins
Right.
to come out with the dogs and stuff. But when the Oklahoma City police were notified and they came out, they said, no, we're in control of this investigation, which is unusual unless it's a real small police department. But, you had the El Reno Police Department and the Canadian County Sheriff's Department. So they should have had the authority, but apparently it didn't work out that way. Now, I wanted to speak to the responding officer, but he's deceased. So they came out. They initially didn't find a blood trail, but the bloodhounds got out there, and they found his body about 1.5 miles northeast of that vehicle in a farm field. That's all it is, with rugged terrain. Well, I talked to Terry's mother, and she said he definitely had a strong case of sickle cell anemia. Okay? How does a person lose 2 pints of blood and walk 1.5 miles? How far is 1.5 miles? How many football fields is that?
Right.
Like 15, 18, at least, maybe 20 football fields. That's a long distance. The body was on its back. He was wearing a black T-shirt, blue jeans, and sneakers. There was a bullet wound in the head that entered the right temple and exited below the cheekbone. That's the exit wound. Now, Craig Roberts, who's written about this, said that, it was, they tried to say at first it was his service weapon, okay, but, it wasn't. It was a gun that I've handled. It was a Smith & Wesson 9mm that he also owned. Now, it looks like there was no stellate. It's a little print that comes from gases that come out of the gun and create sort of a star-shaped pattern. Mm-hmm. The implications are that whoever shot him through the head used a silencer.
Because it wouldn't leave.
It was a professional. And it looks like they held him from behind, and but still that bullet, the entry was in the temple. One shot. There were, when you look at the autopsy report, there's blood that's coming down. I'll show you that in a minute. That's coming down the head. The face is beaten, and when the family got the car back, they found a bloody knife in the glove box.
In addition to the razor blades.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And there were apparently 2 different police reports, one that's been hidden from view and the official version. The official version said he was fighting with his wife and he was stressed out from the bombing and all of that. And they wrote an article in the Wall Street Journal that said officer commits suicide because he's guilty that he didn't save more people at the bombing. And it is true that a lot of officers had very serious problems after the bombing. I was there. I saw a lot of the bloodshed, but I guess I'm a stronger person. I can deal with that. I can handle it. But some people can't, and I think they shouldn't be in law enforcement or EMTs or ambulance drivers. They can't deal with that. They need to find a different profession.
Yes, sir.
So there's people that Craig Roberts had connections in the law enforcement community. And the other report said that he had grass and moisture, and it makes it look like the body had been dragged across a long field. And he had been beaten and tortured, and there were razor blade marks on each side of the neck, on the wrist, the elbows, and rope burns around the neck, handcuffs and rope marks around the wrists. And the Oklahoma City police told the medical examiner's representative out there that he had been drinking that day, but he didn't drink. And the blood test didn't show any alcohol in the system. He just had medications he took for sickle cell anemia. So the whole crime scene, and there's disputes about what time he was found, how long it took the dogs to find his body, and the Oklahoma City police have not actually said exactly where the car was found. Or the report I've got said it was 100 yards north of Jones Road, okay, on East Reno Road in El Reno. But different people say different things. So we don't really know that. They haven't told us exactly where the body was found. Out in the field, well, that doesn't tell us much. So after that, of course, Terry's mother and his widow requested an autopsy, but none was done.
And if a survivor of someone that's deceased requests that, is it mandatory?
Yeah, if it's requested.
If it's requested? Okay.
Yeah. Some of the police officers that I interviewed that weren't the Oklahoma City police, that weren't familiar with the case, said that, of course there was an autopsy done. It would always be that way with a police officer that's found with a gunshot wound, because that's the insurance companies required it. They're going to pay off,
But there wasn't one.
And I told one officer, his training sergeant, I said none was done. He says, "Oh, you can't be serious." I said, "I am." He says, "Well, how do you know?" And I said, "Well, I talked to the medical examiner. I went down there with Terry's family and with the Craig Roberts and all of these people."
Right after it happened.
No, it was 15 years, but it was much after the fact.
Oh, wow.
But the Larry Balding, who was the field investigator, was deceased, and Fred Jordan, who was the former head of the forensic pathology group nationwide, very distinguished, had left the state. And Chris told me that when they called him to ask him about Terry Yeakey, he says, "Look, I've got a family." You know what I mean? And he wouldn't talk about it. But apparently what happened was that, according to Chris, is that the FBI found some dirt on him and reminded him if he didn't keep his mouth shut, they're going to reveal it, destroy his reputation. So, but he's deceased now. So a lot of people were afraid to talk, and it was made clear to the police department, don't talk about this. And it's true to this day. So I think to myself, who could put that kind of fear into the minds of a street cop and whatever? And it would have to be, people like Janet Reno, the Attorney General, right up to the White House, right up to the top. And to this day, they're afraid. There's a guy, and I'm trying to remember his name. You see him on TV all the time. He's the police spokesman. Gary, I can't remember his last name. But he graduated with Terry Yeakey. And CNN did a report on it, and they asked him about it, and he says, well, anybody that thinks that it was a conspiracy to kill him and that the Oklahoma City police are culpable for covering this up or just going down a large rabbit hole. And he's a liar. You know, I don't believe a word he's saying. He's the party line, you know. There's been a renewed interest in this case involving Terry Yeakey. I spoke to a senior person at CNN, and they told me ever since they did this case that they think about it every day. It just sort of haunts them. And I said, you know, I understand. It's a haunting case.
What got you involved 15 years after the incident?
An article by Pat Shannon.
Something you just read?
Just a writer, and I read the article, and I thought, that happened right here in Oklahoma City. I'd like to meet some of the people and see what happened. So I called up Charles Key, who was a fantastic person, and he met me at a restaurant with Chris Emery and another person named Holland van den Nieuwenhof, who was a former Marine at Camp Pendleton, who was very involved with the case. And they ended up, Chris and Holland, taking me to the scene of this murder. And as I said, it's just a large field out in the middle of nowhere. Well, not totally. I mean, it runs sort of parallel to Interstate 40 when you go into El Reno. But it's outside of El Reno. And you just drive up these things, and it's just big fields, you know. And it's just sort of eerie. You go out there and everything. Now, after Terry's death, his widow, Tanya Yeakey, was subjected to a lot of harassment. She was followed, put under surveillance. Her phones were tapped. The brakes on her car were messed with, and she took it to a friend who was a good auto mechanic, and they said, somebody did this to your vehicle. I can tell the difference. And she got death threats on the phone, everything. And she was trying to raise 2 children at the same time. So she was... And I've met Tanya, and she's a sweet girl. She's really nice, real pretty. And so she just went through a lot. And then she didn't talk to any reporter. She did one long interview, and she just sort of went undercover for 10 years. And I ran into her at when some of Tucker Carlson's people wanted to interview me, and they were interviewing her also. So I got a chance to meet her and talk to her. Terry's mother and sister are both deceased. Most of the family, except for one girl, and she's experienced so much stress that she can't really walk straight. She walks sort of sliding, and the doctor told her it was because of the inordinate stress that she's been through. That's what stress does to the human body. And it's just, her name is LaShawn. And I just feel so sorry for her, you know. It's awful.
Why do you think there's a renewed interest in the case now, being 20 years later, 25 years later?
There's a lot of stories on TV about it. You know, I've seen several. I mean, CNN did a excellent story on it. And they quoted and had pictures of 2 police officers. And they both, to quote them, they said, yeah, it's my belief that he was murdered. And you know, the day he was murdered, now he was collecting information, videos, photos, and that kind of thing about the bombing that proved the official version was wrong.
That official report.
The official reports on the bombing. And so, and I'm not sure exactly what it was. It could have been a lot of things. You know, it could have been something about the building itself. I mean, Charles Key invited a man from the Air Force named General Benjamin Parton, who was an explosives expert for the Air Force. And what they would do to train people, they would go out and just have a building, put a bomb in it, explode it, and then have the students go and tell, say, now tell us what happened. What kind of explosive was used? Where was the bomb placed? And that's how students learn. He would train them. Well, the news report said that ammonium nitrate, which just anybody that's had a farm knows what ammonium nitrate is, and they're saying that was the explosive used in the bombing. Now, as I said before, there were 2 explosions. That's what I heard. And V.Z. Lawton, who is unfortunately deceased, who I became very close friends with, was a survivor of the bombing. He worked for the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And he's one of the only people that survived in his office.
Wow.
But at the time of the bombing, he was in a conference room, and they had people all around the table and an instructor from California where they have all the earthquakes. And the instructor was talking, and the building all of a sudden just shook. He says it just shook. And the instructor said, "It's an earthquake. Everybody get under your desk." Everybody dove under the table real quick, and then there was a second explosion that hit, that ripped off the face of the building, and VZ just woke up on a ledge, and everybody there was I think it killed everybody in that room except for him.
Oh my gosh.
But VZ was a great man. He spoke out against the official version.
I wonder how that feels as far as waking up and you being the only one alive in a room.
He said it was like an ugly dream.
Ugh. Gosh.
So there were a lot of things about the bombing that don't make sense. And Charles Key got some scientific types that measured the force of the explosion that day, showing that there were 2 explosions, one inside the building and one outside. Well, the blast outside of the building blew in, creating that kind of damage. And then the explosive device inside the building blew out, causing the broken out windows across the street and elsewhere. Mm. Because an ammonium nitrate bomb could not have, by itself, could have caused that kind of damage.
So there was damage to the building and the residual areas around.
Oh, yeah, and it was widespread. It was blocks. I mean, because I saw it when I was racing down there. I thought, oh, my God, what is this? So I think Terry Yeakey was aware of that and other things.
Since he was the first one there, he was getting a really good view of everything.
Yes, he did. So, another thing that happened in the weeks before Terry Yeakey was murdered, and this came to me from Roland Steele, who was a part of his clique. He had like 4 people in a clique, and Terry was one of them. And he told me that Terry told him that in the weeks before the bombing that he...
In the weeks before the bombing?
Before he was killed, the day he was killed, that he would change houses where he would sleep every night, His mom had these rent houses, and he would go in there and sleep at a different place every night, and he carried a shaving kit, a sleeping bag, and a 12-gauge shotgun. And he was under surveillance. He knew he was being followed by federal agents.
And this is 10 years after the bombing.
Yeah.
Correct.
9 years after the bombing. Because he continued to push for the truth.
Yes, sir.
Basically what it was. And this kind of thing happens to a lot of people. Not just Terry Yeakey, but a lot of people. But this story has just attracted more attention. Now, Chris found out something really interesting about who killed Terry Yeakey, and he knows a lot more about this. I just remember him telling me. I was driving with him in his car, and we went to downtown Oklahoma City, and he said, "See that little office over there?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "That used to be inhabited by these people with IGI."
What's IGI?
I said, "IGI, what's that?" Oh. It's an acronym for Investigative Group International. It's a private detective firm that does stuff domestically and internationally, the big stuff, big stories you hear about. and it consists of retired members of the children's alphabet soup. You know, A, B, C, D, E, A, ATF, and that these retired members of the Justice Department engage in, among other things, black bag operations or black ops, including murder. I don't know how he found this out, but that's what he said. And he felt that they were responsible for the death of Terry Yeakey because organizations like the CIA, they never really do it directly. They subcontract it out to a third party. So these agents are retired. They're not really working for the FBI or Customs or whoever. But he's got that information. You know, he lives in Florida. He's got that all packed away. I don't know how he found it out, but...
And what were you saying that Terry let his friend know weeks before he was killed? What was that?
That he was really afraid. He told his wife the same thing. He wanted to make sure that, you know, there's insurance policies for the kids because I don't know what's going to happen to me. So he was just traveling around to avoid this surveillance and to protect himself. You know, so by the time they figure out how we're going to kill him if he walks out the door or whatever, he's at another home. So he was running around really fearful, very fearful. And this Roland Steele was a police officer also. And his wife told him, either you quit the force, after Terry Yeakey's death, she says, you quit the force or I'm going to divorce you. And he ended up working with me in a finance company. And I didn't even know he had been a policeman. I was just talking about it one day. So, oh, Joe, I knew him. I knew Terry. He's the one that gave me the recommendation to be on the police force. You know. And then another close friend, Barry McCary, ran into Vicky Yeakey, who was at the police station getting some information, and she told me she was going up the stairs, and he was going down the stairs, and he pulled over to the side, and he said, they killed him. And they both knew what that meant. That's all he said. They killed him. And Barry McCary is deceased. You know, that's somebody else I wanted to talk to. Trying to contact his family members. He probably didn't reveal any of that kind of stuff to them, but maybe. You never know.
And what got you involved in looking into that? Were you like a reporter or...
Well, no, I had been, at the time of the bombing, I was doing part-time work as a private investigator.
Okay.
Working for Bill Davis, and we were doing things like, I was Bill Davis's bodyguard. He was the president of Profile. And we did background checks, which was pretty interesting because a lot of times a girl would come in dating a guy and said, could you just do a background check? I just want to make sure my boyfriend's, you know, we're going to get married. I want to make sure he's okay. Sometimes innocently. And I'd look it up and find, you know, grand larceny or forgery, burglary, you know, kiting checks, whatever. And just, they would leave in tears, you know.
Oh, my goodness.
And sometimes we did bodyguarding for people that were victims of stalking. We did a girl in Norman. And we were there and caught the guy that was stalking her, threatening to kill her. She was in a sorority, so they let us in the sorority house because they were really worried about her. And I didn't raise any suspicions because I had long hair, you know, because we did some bail bonding recovery work. And if you don't have long hair, they won't answer the door.
Really?
Not them.
And what time frame is that, years-wise?
In the 90s.
So in the 90s, you had to have long hair to be cool?
Yeah, most bounty hunters, they had that. And we did all sorts of stuff, but mainly background checks and stuff.
So you were doing private investigating and security when the bombing happened. And then after finding out more info, that's why you wanted to get more involved because you already had a history of investigating things. Right.
I mean, I was just curious about certain aspects of it. And when I met Charles Key, it was sort of funny because I'd read that story newspaper stories about him, and they were talking about him like he's some wild-eyed guy in the streets with long hair, a tie-dye T-shirt, bell-bottoms, yelling revolution. But I met him, and I was just really shocked because he was a very conservative. He was more like William F. Buckley Jr. or a real conservative man in a suit, very reasonable, very respectful, very intelligent, just a top-rate professional, and had a great reputation in the House of Representatives, and he'd had a lot of bills passed and was involved in some really good projects. A very respected man. And of course, he got death threats too. And he didn't believe that Terry committed suicide because he said Terry wouldn't do that to his kids. He really loved his children, He just loved children in general, which is why he was in the DARE program.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that we will come up with a solution or what happened. Chris has the IGI thing, and he's all involved in that. I know what I just told you is what he told me, but I'm not digging into that. But he's real interested in that part of it.
As far as, unless you had something else you wanted to say, I had a question. When we had talked before, you mentioned of a very intimate and moving moment when you stayed with someone that was dying at the bombing. The lady that was wrapped around the pole or something.
Yeah.
Would you mind sharing that story? I feel like it's so
important.
Well,
I was down there with Bill Davis.
And that's right after it happened, right?
Yeah, just minutes.
Bombing happens, you're going from Kaiser's and then...
Yeah, there, and she was wrapped around a parking meter.
I think that's what you had mentioned.
Yeah, she was a black female, probably in her early 20s and pregnant, and I just looked at that. But I still had control, so I just...
What do you mean control?
Well, I meant emotionally in control.
Of yourself. Got it.
Oh, yes. I knew I had to be, and had to keep my eyes open and not only look, but see. Who's
What's
suspicious?
The difference?
Well, you can look at something, but you don't really see what's going on, And so I held her hand, and she was dead, very dead, and told her I promised her I would find her.
She died while you were holding her hand, or she was already...
No, her eyes were open in a death stare. I think one leg was gone.
What made you stop?
I just saw her. I was just walking up and saw a body there, and she was there, so I thought, well, I'll kneel down, and Bill, who was with me, said, there's no time for this. I said, just give me a little, just 30 seconds. And I promised her that I would find her mother, father, boyfriend, husband, whoever, and tell them that she wasn't alone when she died, And I did find them a year later at a bombing memorial. They had Randy Travis there and I think Willie Nelson, whoever. They were out there, and I found, because behind a fence they had the survivors area, and I talked to them, and it was scarier going up to talk to them than finding the body, because I was afraid. I was thinking, what am I going to say? What am I going to tell these people? What if I say the wrong thing? What if I come across as being insincere or shallow or whatever? So I just walked up to him and told him my name, and I said, is it okay with you if I talk to you about your daughter? Because I was there at the very end when just after she had died. And is it okay with you? And they were so nice. She was a black family, just so sweet, and they said, sure, you can. And I told them the story, and that I told the girl I was sorry she lost her baby and this and that. And the mother was crying and just came up and put her arms around me. She was shaking, So, and then I talked at that memorial to another guy who told me that he lost his girlfriend in the bombing. And they were engaged to be married, And the last time they saw each other, as he dropped her off, they were having not a fight, but a lover's spat. It wasn't serious, just a an argument. So she was a little miffed, and when she got out of the car, that's the last time he saw her. Dropped her off about 8:50 in the morning, and the blast was like 9:02. So he was sort of reaching out to me for some kind of a solution. So I thought, I've got to come up with something right here and right now. I'm not going to walk away from it. I won't do that. And so we started having a talk. And I started talking about the need for people to live in the here and now. It's a Buddhist concept. And I said, it may seem hard for you. I said, it's something you have to work on every day. When you get up in the morning, breathe deeply and relax. Think of right here and right now. And slowly the pain will dissipate. But it just takes time. And all it takes is patience. So he ended up marrying another girl. And she knows about what happened.
What brought you to give him that lesson? What do you think compelled you?
I don't know. I just felt like I know what it was. I felt if I just walked away or I said something shallow, we'll pray for you. Have a nice day. That I felt he was reaching out to me or anybody to try to help him. So I felt obligated to do that in the most sensitive and sincere way that I could. And it was difficult. I mean, after the conversation, I thought, well, I've been talking to this guy for 30 minutes, but it was like close to 4 hours. And I felt like at the end of it that I had been running a marathon. I felt physically spent, exhausted. But I felt good because I went out to a little Japanese restaurant, had green tea, and sat there and thought, I did the right thing. A lot of time we see areas of gray and we're ambivalent and we don't know, did we do the right thing or the wrong thing? But this time I felt like I really did the right thing because I helped somebody that was in need.
And you did it selflessly.
Mm-hmm.
You just did it.
Mm-hmm. It just sort of happened.
What do you think compelled you to stop with the lady and then also stop for that man and talk to him after the fact? Like, what do you think calls you to be so present in those moments and to sit there with someone that just passed and give her positivity or talk to this man who needs some sort of closure? Like,
well, when I walked up to the woman, I saw from a distance like somebody on the ground. But as I walked closer and closer, I could see what happened. And leaning down and doing that or going up to the man, it was if it wasn't something I planned to do deliberately. It just happened, like spring, summer, winter, or fall. It's straight out of the Buddhist playbook. It just happened.
So in moments of, what's the way to put it? In moments of an opportunity to choose, you always lean more to, how can I give in this moment?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It seems...
I just felt it was a feeling of sorrow and deep empathy.
That's where my mind was going, is it's like you almost want to not let them know that they're seen or heard, but like connect almost.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Because he was telling me this stuff, and I think he was telling me for a reason, and because he was just suffering. And he told me he isn't going to go down anymore to that place. He feels like she's talking to him, because his father-in-law was well known because he goes around giving speeches as a result of his daughter's death against capital punishment.
Okay. Like pushing for it?
No, against it.
Oh, against it. Capital punishment is the death sentence, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh. And so he, that's where I kept in contact with this gentleman who lost his fiance.
Do you think that's a positive thing, that the father is trying to push for even more forgiveness Is it from a positive outlook?
For him,
Right.
a lot of people just want revenge. And I found through experience, and as I grow older, that revenge will lead you to a very terrible place.
So even a father that lost his daughter is preaching forgiveness, and even someone like yourself that is seeing people dead or alive looking for a connection, you're always willing to give.
Yeah, and you never want revenge. I mean, I never obviously met Timothy McVeigh. I've seen interviews with him, and he seems like an intelligent person. And they think what really happened there is that, well, I know that he was an informant for the federal government. I know that because there was a girl sitting at this table for 2 days who was doing a master's thesis on the bombing. She came to Oklahoma City, and she had talked to McVeigh's attorney, okay, Stephen Jones. And he said, if you're really interested in this, you ought to go down to the Austin, I think it was the Austin Law Library.
Okay.
He says, I donated all my papers to them, and it's what you call exculpatory evidence that never came up in court, but it was there.
Okay.
So she started making copies of it. And, when the FBI found out about it, they went up to the library and told the librarian, they said, look, we're going to have to take all this stuff, and take it in our van and leave. And the librarian, a feisty old lady, says, the hell you are. You're not doing jack shit. She says, no, if you don't have a warrant signed by a judge showing specifically what it is you want to take, and you have a warrant signed by a judge, you're not going to take a piece of paper out of here. So they left. And she kept making copies and brought it. They ended up here in my dining room. And I asked her, Wendy was her name. She wrote a book on the bombing. And I said, do you mind if I look through some of these papers? These are FBI documents. She said, sure, but just keep them in order. I said, okay. And I started looking through these papers. And I started having nightmares. These papers read like a conspiracy book. McVeigh was an informant for the ATF. And what people are saying, and a lot of people are saying this, is that the Oklahoma City bombing was a failed sting operation. A matter of fact, people that have been interviewed that were down there, joggers and stuff around the building, and an hour or 2 hours before the bombing, they were out there jogging and they saw bomb trucks and dogs sniffing around the area of the federal building. Big bomb truck. And people were saying, how do you know it was a bomb truck? They said, because it's right there on the side of the truck. Oklahoma County Sheriff's Department bomb team. Yep, that's a bomb truck. So there were people out there the night before. And the story goes that, it was about a year from Waco. Okay. And the ATF wanted to be the saviors of something they thought was going to happen. So, and that would give them a lot more funding because they were short on funds. Mm. But apparently somebody got the times all screwed up. Okay.
That's not funny, but it's interesting.
It's ironic. Yeah. It really is. I got to know Janie Coverdale. She lost her grandchildren in the bombing.
Yeah, my dad carried dead children out.
What's that?
My dad carried dead children out.
Oh, of the bombing?
The bombing, yeah.
Really? Was he a firefighter?
No, he was in the Oklahoma Water Department. And the Oklahoma City Water Department and firefighter. One of my great friends, his name's Ryan Fields. His dad, there's a huge picture of him. He was a firefighter that was carrying someone out, and he's like pretty popular because
they had that picture that was an award-winning photo of a guy.
Him. I think that's him.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's him. And then my dad, he doesn't talk about it a lot, but he did speak to me a little bit, and he was like, man, being in my 30s or late 20s, I think he was in his late 20s, because it was 1994, right?
95.
95. So he would have been in his 20s. carrying those children out, he said it really messed him up, and having to do that. So I can only imagine what these people experienced.
Yeah, I guess I must be stronger than I think because I saw it, the suffering. There were hands out of the bricks. There were
Oh, wow.
particles. There were fingers. I found particles of brain tissue about the size of your thumbnail scattered around. And I knew it because I took a class in psychology and anatomy of the brain, so I recognized it.
What do you think? From you being such a caring and present person and wanting to show compassion and love, how do you think you keep that blinder on?
I think it was because I spent a lot of my life studying the Chinese fighting arts.
In what way? Break it down for me. What do you mean?
Well, I spent in junior high, started with judo, and later on I studied it through junior high school, through high school, through college at the University of Hawaii.
That's where you went to college?
Uh-huh.
That's cool.
Well, I went to high school at Putnam City, original. The first 2 years I went to St. Gregory's in Shawnee.
Yeah.
And then after that, University of Hawaii.
And then what other Chinese fighting arts were you learning?
Well, I went to, there was a Chinese Kung Fu club in Shawnee at St. Gregory's, run by a guy named George Ying. But when I went to Hawaii, I sought out a teacher named James DeMille.
Okay.
And he studied with Bruce Lee when they were students at the University of Seattle. So, and I really appreciated James DeMille, the most remarkable person I've ever met in my life. And he died just a couple of years ago. Just an incredible individual. Very deep. And I think it's through that kind of discipline, the breathing, the body, you do develop a discipline doing that. And of course, he was a psychologist. He used hypnosis during the class, hypnotherapy. So he really got deep into it. And I think that's what allowed me to balance those two things.
You were almost able to disassociate? And not that might be the wrong word.
I didn't.
Because you were feeling it.
Yeah, I never felt disassociated or like my mind was playing games with itself. I saw the suffering and accepted it.
You're able to accept it and not let your emotions take over. Is that it?
That's another way to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just seems interesting that you can be so compassionate and be able to, I guess, not be negatively affected by the trauma.
Right. And I've checked myself to see if I am negatively affected by it, and I don't think I am. And I don't know how I do it. It just sort of happens.
It's like a beauty of, I just think of acceptance.
I'm sorry?
I just think of like acceptance.
Yeah,
you're like able to accept what you're seeing.
Right.
And not go too high or too low. You're able to stay level.
One thing that helps me to accept it is some of my knowledge of astronomy. Because when you get out and you realize that the Earth is just one microscopic speck of dust in the infinite billions of stars in a universe, you really start thinking, why do we take ourselves so seriously? We're just a little speck,
I notice that when I'm hiking and things.
When you what?
When I hike, like when I'm in nature. And it hasn't been as much with the stars, but like one time I was hiking in Polidoro Canyon, and I'm sitting on the canyon and I'm just looking, and all you see is canyons for miles, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, and I have a picture on my phone where you see my legs, and I'm just laying down. And those moments like that, or seeing the Grand Canyon, or being in mountains, or being in the forest, or whatever, it's like you sit for a moment and your body finally centers. And it does seem like those are the thoughts you have, like, why am I taking this so serious? Long after me, this will be here. And
yeah.
I think for some people, it could give you a feeling of like negativity, or like, what am I even doing this for then if nothing matters? But that's not the feeling I get. It's like almost an appreciation feeling, kind of like what you're saying with being present.
Yeah, and there's a difference between Eastern and Western philosophy. That sort of plays into it. Like you look at these paintings, the human being is the center of the painting. But you look at some of the old Chinese Zen Buddhist paintings, they'll have a picture of a man real little, maybe in the corner, and then the rest of it is a beautiful scene of nature and rivers and clouds and everything. But the man is only a real small part of that, to showing man is one with nature.
Is that how you interpret it?
Oh,
one
yes.
with nature?
Yeah. These paintings have a real Buddhist influence.
And is that something you've been into for a long time?
I've always had an interest in it. My friends, the ones that are still alive, they're all born-again Christians, and they don't like it. But I think what happens with religion a lot of times, you get put into a parent-child paradigm.
Okay.
In which in Western religions, they feel that they're sort of the parent and you're the child and you need their help. They sort of treat you like a child. I'll take care of you. I'll show you what length to wear your hair, what to eat, what to believe, when to go to church, what to think, what to feel. And I see it for what it is. And I've told my friends that. I said, you can keep talking about it, but it won't change anything about the way I feel or my beliefs. They sometimes they'll say, well, don't you ever wonder where things come from? And I said, not anymore. No, I don't wonder. I'm just a part of it, and I'm here. It's like in philosophy, they call it ontology, the art of being.
And that's why you were saying be here and now.
Uh-huh.
And when do you think, is that something you've done for a long time?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What positive impacts did it have on your life when you focused more on presence and being here today?
Well, I think that it's not that the past doesn't have a value, because all of us, you and I, we can look at our past to sort of look at how we got where we are now.
Mm-hmm.
Did your parents divorce? Were you abused as a child? Were you real shy on the playground? Were you a bully? And those things lead up to where you are now. But I think a person can become attached to the past or dream of the future in an unrealistic or unhealthy way. So everything really comes from the present. If I have something I want to accomplish, I start right now. I'm right here in the present. So I'm going to start learning Spanish or Chinese or whatever. It's done in the present. But the mind plays tricks on itself. So we shouldn't be caught, we shouldn't have one foot in the past and one in the present. But the past is only used to, when you have periods of time when you want to analyze your own personality. Why are you afraid of heights? Why are you shy around girls? Why did your last relationship fail? And it just helps you to go through, I call it the spin and rinse cycle, where you can see, why am I the way I am? Mm-hmm. A lot of us develop these fears without thinking about where they came from.
Yeah. And then it becomes like an identity almost.
Yeah.
For an example, I started rock climbing a little over a year ago, and I used to have a big fear of heights. And that's what I practice saying is used to, or I'm working through a challenge of heights or things like that, because mm-hmm. I don't want to tell myself over and over that I'm scared of heights just because when I was 5 years old, I figured out I was scared of heights at that time. Because then it becomes like an identity. Or my wife will always say, even if you're joking, be cognizant of like how you're speaking about yourself. Like don't drop a cup and be like, oh, I'm so stupid. Because that could be a deeper thing.
That's a good point.
Do you believe in stuff like that?
Yeah, no, you really had an important point, because we go through these habitual patterns of behavior.
And then it becomes
a lot of times without being cognizant of what's going on under the water.
And that's almost like the being in the past, because now you're letting this past be your identity, and you may not
it's controlling you. Yeah.
You may not even feel that way anymore. You
right.
know?
Right. Uh-huh. But some of these behavior patterns can be ephemeral and long-lasting and very intense, that like things like anger.
Yeah.
or
You
the
can
way a
hold it for
person
so long.
treats their child. That the people I've met with the biggest behavioral problems have been people that their father died when they were young or left the family when they were young and they didn't have a father figure, and there's problems with people with families where some women that they saw their mother beat up by their father. So they just start thinking, oh, that's just normal. I remember a girl in high school. We were at a theater on 23rd and MacArthur. There's a little center there. And we were going out with two
I know
other...
what you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, where we go there, and they would fight with each other, but I got to witness it for the first time, and they were arguing, and he hit her, slapped her, kicked her, and she was down on the concrete,
And this is a friend of yours' parents?
We're just high school kids going out to a movie, three couples.
Oh, the high school kid was beating the girl.
Yeah, we were all high school. This is when I was in high school.
I thought you were talking about an adult.
No, we
That's
were like
even worse.
16, 15 years old.
Uh-huh.
And he was wailing away at her, and she was bleeding, a cut lip. And so I started to go in, and the other girlfriend said, no, Joe, no, I'll explain. Okay. And so after he hit her real hard and beat her up, he walked into the movie theater by himself. And I talked to her, and I said, Cindy, I said, what are you doing? I said, why do you allow this to happen? Because you can make a decision. You can make a decision that you won't tolerate this anymore. And she said, and I'll never forget this, Joe, you just don't understand. I love him. She had blood coming down her thing, and her mascara black was coming down. It was a bloody sight. I said, okay. So I didn't try to change her. I said, okay. I said, some people have to hit rock bottom. You don't have to be an alcoholic. And I said, when you do hit rock bottom, assuming you live and you're in the hospital, give me a call and I'll come up. We'll just talk. So this was before I went to college, but I never saw her again. But I just stirred in my mind, Joe, you don't understand. I'm in love. I love this person. I heard the same thing when I was at St. Gregory's, a girl I had in a swimming class, and she would come in with bruises all over her body. And her name was Kathy. I'm from a small town, Oklahoma. I said, Kathy, what happened to you? She says, oh, I was doing some gymnastic stuff, and I hit a wall and stuff. And I said, come on. I said, I'm with the Kung Fu Club, and I referee matches. I know what a hit does to the eye or a kick looks like to the body. I said, don't try to, don't blow that smoke up my skirt. That's an old saying with the mafia when you're lying to somebody, the Al Capone, they'd say, hey, Vinny, don't blow that smoke up my skirt. They used to say that. Old slang word. So anyway, she was dating a guy from the Middle East, from Tehran. Okay. And they'd walk into the student cafeteria, and she'd always walk 15 feet behind him like the other girls did from that culture. And he was going to take her off to marry her and go to the Middle East. But I finally talked her out of it, because she threw that line at me. You don't understand, Joe. I'm in love with him. And I said, are you? Do you know what love means? And we started talking about it. What does it mean? What should a girl expect? And got her thinking about it. And when she went through the process by herself, she made the decision herself to get rid of him.
And this is the lady at St. Greg's?
Yeah.
Wow.
And he was a character. He was a hoot. He had a silk shirt, disco pants, a lot of jewelry, styled hair. You get the picture, yeah.
You were a saving grace to a lot of people. And not because you were forcing a mindset on them or forcing a change.
Oh, no.
You honestly were being more of an active listener and making them think deeper. And then you let them take it from there.
Yeah, and I always respected the work of a psychologist named Rogers. Rogerian psychology teaches a person to listen to the other person and give them feedback on what they said instead of forcing an opinion. Carl Rogers, and the book is On Becoming a Person.
Isn't that so hard to not just respond with your thoughts?
Mm-hmm. You have to work on it.
I learned that in some therapy classes where they were like, hey, after we hear someone's story, don't say, oh, wow, you were so strong, or, oh, that must have been tough. You're giving opinions. Just speak on what they said and leave it at that. And yes, that was in therapy, but it helped me to apply that to other aspects of my life or other conversations, because it is, it's hard not to want to give your opinion. It's okay to relate and connect, especially in general conversation like me and you have had. But there is beauty in just understanding. And I'm saying these things not that I have them figured out. I'm still actively working on them. But it is an interesting aspect of conversation.
Yeah, and then the pillars of Rogerian psychology are listen, respond with empathy, give help, suggestions, and ideas. So yes, I really believe in that philosophy, and it posits this idea that people are self-healing mechanisms. You just have to give them the space to express themselves and to do it on their own.
It's like if you were like trying to quit smoking cigarettes. If someone's forcing you to quit smoking cigarettes, you'll go outside at night and smoke a cigarette. But when you make the decision, it's over.
Right.
And
I've learned the hard way. You can't force somebody. And I keep telling my born-again Christian friends, you can't force anybody to believe anything. You can't. They have to want to believe it. And the only way you can do that is be such a happy and fulfilled person that they look at you and they say, God, I want some of that. I want to be like that person.
It's like try to live as purposeful and intentional as you can, and let other people enjoy it if they're able.
Yeah, and admire it and want to know how you do that. That part of the Western religion is to witness to people and to convince them of things.
I think that was always my struggle, not with just like a religion, but any type of thought process is when it was forced instead of explained. It was really tough for me to grasp. Even something as simple as like a certain thing in history or a math equation or anything. If it was forced, this is how it is because of this, it just seemed, I just have never been really big on absolutes, and not just religion, like I'm saying, just any aspect. The absolute concept always seemed to challenge me, instead of just someone saying their perspective like maybe you have, and then me take an interpretation of it, if that makes sense. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say with this Terry Yeakey thing, my mind is telling me not to spend too much time on it in my personal life, because I do find myself it can be very discouraging. And I've got to tell you that when you've interviewed as many people as I have with regard to the Terry Yeakey case, family members, officers, and you look into their eyes and you feel the pain and you feel the anxiety and you feel the fear and uncertainty, then you begin to understand in a very real way, how ugly it can all be. And it really can get ugly. What these people go through, we're talking about murder, torture, deception, careers were wrecked, people were murdered, lives were destroyed. I don't know how his widow survived and lived through this. She's a very strong person.
Probably with a little bit of practices similar to yourself.
I guess.
Not saying you taught her. I'm just saying she probably found ways to adapt.
And both of her children now are very successful. They've grown up and they're very accomplished.
Yeah.
And at some point, they'll probably look more deeply into this. They may not. I don't know, but they know, from reading.
I I was looking forward to today because we've had some good conversations. And I love that we were able to talk about a specific subject, but also branch out into areas that give me a little more insight into you. And
Right.
I'm really excited for when we sit down again because I feel like you're such a wealth of knowledge that multiple stories need to be unpacked. So please give me the grace of interviewing you again.
Oh, I'd love to do that. It was fun.
But I had a question for you that I wanted to close on.
Okay.
You had mentioned earlier about being here and now and waking up in the morning and taking a deep breath. To leave the listeners and myself with a little bit of positivity and practice, could you explain maybe a couple things that someone could do in their daily life to help them be in the here and now?
Well,
As simple or as expanded as you want, but I want some tangible things.
I think that the key to a lot of this, I mean, because our society is sort of crazy right now, and I can just say what I do.
Yeah, please.
When I get up in the morning, and this is my age is, that's here, just ignore it.
Do you want to hit the noise for it?
Okay.
It interrupted you about to give us some wisdom.
Yeah, see, this is an example of, so I get up and, since I'm 73, my needs are different. I absorb foods differently. I have to exercise differently. And you'll find this as you get up. Be patient. You'll get there. You'll get to old age. So, but I get up real slowly. I don't jump out of bed like I was 18. I get up slowly, and I'll stand up and do a breathing exercise with the hands, sort of Tai Chi kind of movements, and just relax and breathe very deeply. Okay. Then I come in and prepare breakfast that is nutritionally sound, which is helping me. My blood sugar's going down, so I don't have to take diabetes medication. Blood sugar's dropping, and I'm fighting against insulin resistance. It's working just fine. But I've had to work very hard at that. As far as I think what you're driving at, as far as people learning to be in the here and now, I would say the best place to start is deep breathing with physical movement, like Tai Chi. And when you breathe, don't focus on anything. Don't focus on this or that. And you'll start noticing these thoughts that come through your mind. Okay? About the past, the present, the future, anger, revenge, and all of that. So in Buddhism, what they teach is that an enlightened Buddha has feelings and impulses like everyone else does. The difference is that they don't hold on to it. That's the only difference. When you look at the teachings of ancient Buddhism, they let it come in and they let it go out. That's the only difference. So when you breathe, experience the normal feelings you have, and as you exhale, just let go of it. Let it go out. And keep doing that and the breathing, and you'll finally get to a point where it's all gone. They call it mushin, nothingness. That's where I believe in it, and it works. But the deep breathing is good when you feel really upset, or when you can't sleep, But I learned that I had some really good teachers at the University of Hawaii, actually a Buddhist scholar from Sri Lanka, and had an incredible class. He taught us about these principles about just letting go. He says a lot of people think that nirvana is some superhuman state. That's not what it is at all. It's becoming more human, and nothing more. Breathing and just breathe in the here and now. And what's helped me is like, if my hand comes up and I start inhaling, let's say it takes me 5 seconds to come here, I need to train my mind to that my entire inhalation is 5 seconds. See, I need to speed the hand up because my breathing stopped before I got up there. But you can, if you practice, you'll get it.
You'll find that symmetry.
It takes some discipline to do it, though. So I catch myself. And what are other principles? I forgot the name, but it's always catching yourself. Oh, being mindful. That's what it is, being mindful. So if you get mad at somebody, oh, I caught myself doing that. Breathe and let go of it.
That awareness.
Or any feelings. I'm becoming egotistical. I think I'm better than people. No, let it go. Let it go. And we do that all the time based on our past.
Yeah.
You see it on the playground, right? It's right there. I remember East Side Elementary in Midwest City, and I do remember the playground. I remember a guy in class, and the teacher got him and said, well, Mike's not going to be here this next week because his mother died. And as first graders, we were like, we didn't know that really happened to people. And so it scared us to death that people died. So when we came out, when the day before he was going to come back, the teacher said, well, he's going to be coming back, so don't talk to him about his mother. Don't talk about it. So we were out at recess, and he was up against a corner, a wall, just standing there with his head down. And I just walked up to him and just said, Mike, I'm glad you're back. I'm glad you're back. That's all I had to say.
I've got to say, you never know where the conversation will go. And I just appreciate your energy and your mindset and your willing to give. And the common theme of you just being there for people. And I just am very thankful I sat down with you. And I know it won't be the last time, and I look forward to more conversation, but I've got to say that reoccurring theme of you intentionally just giving is a beautiful thing.
Sometimes I see a situation and I can't walk away. If I saw some girl or neighbor down crying on the curb sitting there, there's just something about me. I can't walk away from it and feel okay about myself. I said, well, I'm going to go there and try. Even if they tell me to go away and get lost, I can say I tried. But not doing anything and ignoring it, Or an elderly person in a mall, and they look like they're on a crutch, they need help, I'll help them. But my born-again friend says, well, that doesn't mean anything because you haven't been saved and all of those good things you do are worthless. I said, I'm going to keep doing those worthless things. We're in the Bible Belt.
Right. I just can't say it enough, though. I appreciate you. I look forward to next time, but thank you so much.
I'm so honored to have you here and everything. Had a great time, And what, with regard to Terry Yeakey, that happens to a lot of people. It goes around in the country. It happened in the bombing. There were several people that had untimely deaths.
It was definitely important to speak about, and I was happy that it segued into other aspects that can truly help people.
It's all about suffering,
I'm very grateful for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Aloha.
Aloha, yes.
Yes.